Hello, everyone. My name is Adam Williams, and you are either listening or perhaps even watching another episode of Retail Redeveloped. I'm so excited today to have a retail nerd with me to really talk about what is happening with all things retail. I'm joined by Suzanne Kapner. Now, she has written for a lot of the biggest publications on the planet: New York Times, Fortune. She writes for Wall Street Journal. And now, more importantly, the capstone of her career is, of course, coming on Retail Redeveloped. New York Times is fine, but Retail Redeveloped is obviously where it's all happening. Suzanne, thank you so much for coming on. I can't wait to talk retail with you and hear your perspective on what's going on in the wild, wild west of retail right now.
Well, thanks so much for having me. This is great to be here.
So let's start first before we get into the next 30 minutes of us kind of dissecting our opinions on what's going on in retail. Would you do me a favor and tell everybody a little bit about who you are and why brick and mortar retail and retail in general is something that's near and dear to your heart?
Well, fashion and writing were always like two of my favorite things growing up. And actually, my freshman year of college, I was a fashion design major. I won Best Freshman Designer for the suit that I designed. But I was at Syracuse University and they had the Newhouse School, which was a great journalism school. So I transferred over there and I always sort of wanted to marry the two. And that was my goal. And I was just very lucky to be able to do that for some of these amazing publications, as you mentioned. And I have, over the years, I have switched into other things temporarily, finance, food, but I've always come back to retailing because it's a fascinating industry. It's filled with larger than life characters. And especially the last, couple of years, there's been so much change. It's just been so interesting to write about and to follow what's been going on.
Yeah, it has been an insane leap in all things retail. Some things obviously for the positive, a lot of things for the negative. Well, obviously the reason we connected was an article that you just published in the Wall Street Journal. The title is COVID-19 rewrote the rules of shopping. What is next? So do the readers or do the listeners that have not had a chance to read this yet, give them a small Reader's Digest version of the premise of that article and a couple of the highlights from your perspective.
So, the past year or so during the pandemic, consumer behavior has changed dramatically. We've been forced to order online, order groceries from Instacart, even if we weren't used to doing that before. We're ordering everything online from pajamas to false eyelashes and now when we go to a store, we're making, fewer trips. Maybe we're picking up curbside, and just the whole way we shop has changed dramatically. And we wanted to sort of get a conversation going about which of these habits might stick beyond the pandemic and which will fade away.
So give me a couple examples. Obviously, there is an Instacart or a DoorDash or an Amazon or a Walmart package on my doorstep, pretty much every day these days. So certainly that is not going to change anytime soon. What are some less obvious things about consumer behavior that you think are going to be here to stay?
Well, to me, one of the most exciting things about, what's happened during the past year is it's forced some of these, large US retailers that have been slow really to adapt and slower than, elsewhere in the world, like China, for instance, which is way ahead of us, to some of these e-commerce innovations. They've been forced to really speed everything up by 3 to 5 years. And so, you're seeing things like live stream shopping and virtual fitting rooms and because e-commerce is so elevated, in some categories it's approaching 40%, 50% of a retailer's sales. They've really got to figure out a way to make that online experience better. So we're seeing a lot of innovation. We're seeing retailers try a lot of new ideas.
So are there specific sectors that you think adapted a little bit more easily, or perhaps will be able to continue adapt uh, through this period of upheaval? Like obviously, everybody's been trapped at home, so home goods have just gone through the roof. Grocery never missed a beat, but then you have full service retailers in places that are still shut down, like Manhattan and certainly the Northeast and California and different areas like that are, these people are struggling to survive. What other verticals or what other sectors do you think will see the most change or will change the most because of this?
My area of it, I really follow closely the sort of apparel retailers and the department stores. And these are all the companies that have been struggling, from Macy's to Gap.
Except Lulu.
Lulu's been doing great. They're in a sweet spot right now with all the athletic wear and everything. But so I'm really focused on sort of watching how these companies try to, adapt and whether they can change, fast enough to keep up with changing consumer habits. So, one of the big things that when I talk to retail executives, it's like shopping online is great when you know what you're looking for. But the great thing about going in a store is, you sort of discover things and, it's like that impulse purchase, that thing you didn't set out to buy. And how do you replicate that online? So that's something they're all trying to solve. And, so this idea of live stream shopping where you have like an influencer or celebrity. Tommy Hilfiger held one of these events recently, and they sort of walk you through the latest collection, and they may have models come out and try on the clothes, and they'll talk about the fabric and how it fits, and and you can ask questions. It's interactive. You can you can chat and say, well, how does that fit around the waist, or how what's the fabric like? Is it sheer? And it just adds a whole new element to shopping online. It's much more, it's sort of the best parts of being in a store where you have like a live person you can ask questions to without the hassle of having to go to a store. It combines, some of the best elements of in-store and online.
Well, so how do these, so let's stick with apparel since obviously it's near and dear to you. You know what? So let's take an experience. So when I walk into the Ralph Lauren store in Manhattan, and I know there's multiple, right? But pick one of his flagship stores. There is something about walking in there and getting a glimpse of the lifestyle, the image that Ralph Lauren is trying to create that makes me more apt to spend $300 on a cool Western print shirt or a pair of jeans or what have you, right? How can these brands, especially on the higher end brands, get across that kind of aspirational feeling and ecosystem online? Like, how am I going to get that same, there's the old leather couches and the big rugs. I feel like I'm in this Western or mountain cabin when I'm in there. And how am I going to do that sitting watching on my MacBook?
Well, Ralph Lauren, actually right now, you can walk their Madison Avenue store, you can walk their Beverly Hills store online. So you click on their website, there's a button you click on, and it sort of simulates the store. And it's, as you move your mouse, you're kind of walking through the store. I mean, okay, it's not the same as being in the store, but it's a whole lot better than sort of flipping through product shots. And so you see, that there's a handbag over there in the display, and you click on it, and then maybe a live, a real salesperson will come up on your screen and chat with you about it and say, you can ask her questions, and it's not a robot, it's an actual person. And these luxury brands, and the other thing they're doing is appointment shopping online. So you can make an appointment in advance with a real salesperson to have a virtual session online. And they might be in the store and you might be sitting at home, and they can show you, this is the latest collection, this is the latest handbag, and you can ask them questions. And, so it's this whole other layer of service that you didn't really have online before.
So do you feel like we're kind of in the middle of a stopgap? Like, yes, they're scrambling to get that experience across, but I can foresee a near future where there is more interaction, more 3D, more made to measure, more, I fill out some kind of template and they know my exact, because I'm a lanky son of a gun, right? I've got these freaking monkey arms and I don't, clothes, only certain brands even come close to fitting my Gumby like frame. yeah, I can see a future where it's a completely different online shopping experience than it is today.
That's where we're heading, and a lot of that technology is already here. It's like still pretty, new, and but one of the biggest impediments to buying clothes online is knowing the fit and the size, and
Right.
and that's why we all buy multiple sizes and have to return. And it's a really big pain in the neck, and so that's another huge problem that these companies are trying to solve for. So they're now experimenting with these, they call them virtual fitting rooms, and you can you'll there are different ways to do it, but one way is, on your iPhone, you can sort of take a 3D body scan and upload it, and you will be able to see clothes on your actual body and see, well, wait, this is like, this is too tight in the shoulders, or this is too big in the hips. And a customer who was shopping this way, she shared some photos with me, and she said, I want you to guess, which is the item that I'm actually wearing in real life, and which is the one on the website, that's on my image. I
Wow.
couldn't guess. I couldn't tell the difference
Wow.
between them. And she said that since she's been doing it this way, she hasn't had to return anything, because now she can really see how things fit, and it's really helped her a tremendous amount with the sizing problem.
So what retailers, what brands are kind of leading the charge on this?
It's still very, very new, and it's certainly not widespread yet. But if you give me a second, I can look up the name. It's not like a household name, but
the store that yeah. While you look that up, the store that jumps into my mind, and again, this is coming from the men's apparel perspective, right? I just don't know. I don't know as much about the female brands other than the stuff that my wife likes. Um, but Bonobos, for example, like they seem extremely well positioned to do something like this because their fits are so specific, right? They have, every shirt has 6 or 8 different fits that you can kind of bounce in between to make sure you have the exact fit that you need. So I'm sure there's companies like that are going to be well positioned to kind of make that next leap, and I'm sure there's plenty more that I don't know about on the women's side.
A lot of the bigger ones are experimenting with it, and so some of them are taking like a first step. So Levi Strauss, for instance, you can what they'll let you do now is they'll let you see what the same pair of jeans looks like on different body types and ethnicities. So it's not on your own body, but you can sort of see, okay, there's like different body shapes, and sort of the idea is you match up which body shape is most similar to your own, and you get sort of a better idea of how this might fit on you. And so, they're sort of dipping their toe into the water. It's still very, very early days, but this is where we're heading.
Yeah. So what do you think, looking again into the future a little bit, who do you think is going to be able to make that leap on the legacy brands, and how drastic of an advantage do you think the newer direct to consumer, digitally native, hyper nimble type brands are like, what kind of advantage do you think they're going to have?
I think, they do have the advantage that they're sort of built from scratch for this new world, and they don't have to go change all their internal systems and their way of doing
Right.
it. It's very hard to make those changes. But you have companies like Levi Strauss and like PVH, which owns Tommy Hilfiger. They are pouring a lot of money and resources into trying to solve these problems. And so, there will definitely be some of the legacy brands that do figure this out. And so the retailer that was sort of offering this virtual fitting room is called Co-Edition, which I had never heard of before. It's an online apparel retailer, and that's sort of the beauty today if you're a consumer, because there's so many of these new direct-to-consumer brands that have cropped up, and that are all bringing like new types of innovation to the table.
Yeah, it's truly an exciting time. I did a panel the other day, and people were really wanted to focus on COVID. They wanted it to be kind of like a dreary kind of piece about everybody's declaring bankruptcy and everybody's doing this. And I said, yeah, there's been massive amounts of upheaval. Tons of people are hurting, but you got to look at the silver lining. I mean, there's already new growth. There are people out there that are going to be able to take advantage of second generation space, uh, more stabilized rent prices, uh, people that are going to start getting more creative for real estate space, that are going to start making perhaps micro spaces that are only 600-700 square feet, that a new brand can jump into and use as kind of a billboard and a brand box for what they want to do. So I think that the innovation and that next wave of creators and makers is going to be really exciting. And I don't know if that's going to happen this year because people are still in a cash conservation mode, but I don't think it's going to be very far away.
No, it's absolutely true. With a lot of the CEOs I talk to will say, you never let a good crisis go to waste. And so they're using this opportunity to, make changes that may have been harder to make pre-COVID. And I do think, initially, the first couple of months of last year, everybody was in crisis mode and
Sure.
conserving cash. And now I feel like we're seeing people, they see the light at the end of the tunnel. A lot of these companies have come out of this better than we ever anticipated. I mean, we had a bunch go into bankruptcy, and a lot of them were able to restructure and come out. And you have others that, they've got a lot of cash on their balance sheet right now, and now they're really trying to figure out sort of like, what's the next iteration of my business?
So let's talk about the dreariness. Since I put that segue out there, what about malls? A story that you wrote quoted a source saying that 25% of the nation's malls will close by 2023. Is that something that you give credence to, or is that just a popular thing to say right now?
It's definitely in the realm of possibility because we still have a lot of weak malls in this country. Now, the good malls, the best malls, they call them A malls. There's a rating system for malls. They're doing really well. And but as you kind of go down that spectrum to the lower grade malls, the ones who have been losing tenants and have a lot of vacancies and maybe are in areas that are not as economically viable anymore, they were struggling before the pandemic, and it's only going to get worse for them now. So we're going to see a culling at the bottom there. That was happening already, and it's going to continue to happen. And somebody was just telling me in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, there were 3 malls, 2 of them closed, but now that remaining mall is going to be even stronger than ever because they'll be able to fill up with tenants. And so we're going to see sort of that, as the weaker players leave the market, the stronger ones will get stronger. But unfortunately, this takes a really long time. Dying malls, they can sit around for years and years before they really disappear.
Yeah, and let's be honest, a lot of those malls should have never gotten built, right? I mean, we all know, even as like a brick and mortar retail real estate guy that wants nothing but flourishing development and low vacancy rate. I mean, a lot of these malls should have never gotten built, right? It's very easy to see that we're kind of over retailed from a brick and mortar perspective, and there's, unfortunately, we're going to have to live with that and watch that pendulum kind of swing the other way. So let me ask you another question about something that I think about a good amount. Um, the big box department stores, right? I mean, obviously, it's no secret that the Macy's of the world, the J.C. Penney's, the Belks, the Lord and Taylor's, you pick a name, those guys are all, you know, they're getting their lunch eaten right now. If you had a magic wand, or you were the CEO of one of these companies, what do you think that your strategy would survive and thrive?
I would look outside the US to what some of the department stores are doing in countries like, the UK, in France, even in Mexico and other parts in Brazil. And, there are some very exciting department stores that have like this great experiential component. And, you can go and do a yoga class, or, have a cooking class, or, it's just, the food hall is not like, it's not like going to Macy's for the food hall. It's like going to Harrods for the food hall, which is an amazing, exciting experience. And, the challenge is, that when you have too many stores, like a lot of these department stores do in the US, it's very hard to do that. So they need to call and get rid of their, weaker locations, get smaller, and then spend the money on, their best locations to make them an exciting place to go. So, the worst thing about going to a store is you make the effort to go and then they don't have your size, or they don't have the color you want, or you can't find a salesperson to help you. My wish list would be for them to, really spend the money on doing all those things that you want to see from a store. You want to see great salespeople. You don't want to have to walk around to find a register that's open, or a sales for to have some unlock a fitting room for you. You want and you want to be able to, make sure that they have your size and your color in stock, because you're there, you want to try something on, right? And then, give something extra, have a great restaurant, have, somebody come in and give a ceramics class. I don't know, I'm making this up, but Bloomingdale's has been doing some of this online virtually during the pandemic, where they've had some of their designers give these talks, not about their clothes, but about I think it was Philip Lim, who likes to cook or something like that. And he'll talk about cooking and just, create some kind of engagement where people want to be there.
I think that it's going to be so interesting to see how that evolves and what changes. And I'm also very interested to see this kind of next, new growth of potential department stores and the retail as a service kind of model with Neighborhood Goods and Naked and all of these kind of newer models. I can't wait to see what's next. So walk me through, I read something else that there is an upstart in retailers scoring shoppers based on their return rates. I've not heard that before. Is this something that is becoming common? It makes sense. It's got to be the biggest line item in a lot of these retailers' balance sheet. Who is doing this?
Well, yeah, returns, especially during the pandemic, online returns, are off the charts for a lot of these retailers, and it's really expensive it's so expensive that, in fact, some chains like Walmart, Target, Amazon, they'll tell you to just keep it. If it's below if it's not an expensive item, or it may cost too much for you to send it back, they will say, what, don't even bother, just keep it. We'll refund you the money.
Right. Especially if it's heavy. Yeah.
So, but there are lots of retailers and startups trying to solve the return problem. And this one company has come up with this idea of, what if we looked at, somebody's returns and scored it the way you do a credit score, right? And maybe it's not always the customer's fault. Maybe, you have to look at it holistically. Maybe the retailer didn't have a good description on their website.
Right.
Or maybe there was something faulty with the product where, the fabric was pilling and everybody was returning it. You have to kind of look at the whole picture, from the supplier to the website and try to really understand what's driving the return. And from the customer point of view, try to sort of single out these serial returners, and maybe they don't get the discount. Maybe you reward your, customers who return less with a better, promotion or something like that, trying to be creative and the way they, reward behavior.
I would love to see the cancel culture marauders get a hold of somebody that won't sell to them because they have a terrible return credit score. I would love to just watch that play out on Twitter. That would be hilarious. But I totally get it. I mean, if you just buy 5 of everything and you return 4, company's not making a cent. Suzanne, all right.
Encouraged us to do that because their sizing is so inconsistent. It's, they bear the blame for that. Even when you go, they have the size chart, and, a lot of times I'll go on and I'll measure and I'll do everything I'm supposed to do, and the product comes and it still doesn't fit, so they need to get better on how they size and explain their sizing.
And that's why, honestly, I'm such a creature of habit when it comes to brands. Yeah, if I find a brand and I know that the large fits me or the extra large fits me, that's like the only brand I'll buy. Or I'm the worst about that because it's such a pain. Well, Suzanne, you've already been extremely helpful and giving with your time. Tell everybody, how can they follow what you're doing, how can they connect with you, how can they hear kind of your perspective on all things retail?
Sure. Well, obviously read the Wall Street Journal, and I do post all my stories on social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. So please follow me.
All right, I'm going to hit you with a couple quick knee-jerk questions before I let you go. You ready for that? It's a lot of pressure.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right, number one, let's talk about this award-winning suit design that you had. Are we talking big lapels, lots of flaring, lots of pleats? Like, can I get a picture of this thing? I want to know what you were.
Actually, I have it upstairs in my closet. I could show you. It was like it was navy blue wool, and the lining was fuchsia, and it was like in senior class fashion show. And so the model walked down the runway, and then she like opened the jacket and flashed the fuchsia lining. So it was it's like
Dude.
a highlight moment for me.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm getting excited just thinking about the fuchsia. I mean, that's intense. Uh, so to change gears a little bit, you discuss how COVID rewrote the rules of shopping. You know, what rules do you think have changed that aren't going back?
Curbside pickup, that was something that did not take off. A lot of companies tried it before the pandemic, and consumers just didn't bite. Now, that's here to stay. People really seem to like it. It's super convenient, saves retailers a lot of money. So that's here to stay. That crazy Black Friday shopping where you'd line up outside of Walmart at 4 a.m. waiting for like a doorbuster TV. I don't think we're going to see that so much going forward.
So you think so? So do you think that it's going to be more like Amazon Prime Day, where they'll still have the crazy stuff, but you're not going to see the local news headlines of people waiting around the block at the Walmart?
I think retailers kind of learned their lesson that it's much more efficient way to do business to spread out the promotions and start early and kind of have them throughout the season rather than like trying to cram as many people into your store for a few hours on the Friday after Thanksgiving. That just like didn't really work for anybody. And they've seen like it's much more efficient to do it differently.
Yeah, I certainly think that's going to be that's going to be a thing of it. Well, people have short memories, so we'll see. I could see certainly this year it's not, but I can't wait to see what next year has in store. Well, give me what other than the fitting technology. Give me another piece of technology that this pandemic has kind of opened the door on that you think is going to be really important.
Well, like social shopping, shopping on social media is now, it's
Oh
a
yeah.
real thing. According to this one survey, 1 in 3 people bought something on social media in the past year. And I think we're going to see a lot more people, whether it's Clubhouse or, TikTok or Instagram, people are going in there to shop.
That's awesome. Well, Suzanne, thank you again for your time. Really appreciate it, and can't wait for the listeners to hear your perspective and frankly keep producing that content. It's for a guy like me that just likes to talk about this stuff, it's always so helpful to read experts, you really thought provoking pieces. It really helps me feel like I'm staying on the cutting edge. So thank you for that.
Thanks so much for having me. Take care.